Well, we're out. The rain stopped. It's a Monday morning. What a beautiful day of the week to be out riding motorcycles and not working. We are today with a really interesting guest, a guy called Simon Gunning, who's the CEO of an amazing mental health charity called Calm, the campaign against living miserably. And hell, we're all for not living miserably, which is why we are out riding our motorcycles today, because that makes you happy and is not miserable. So we're going to go and sit down and have a chat with Simon. He's got a really interesting past, working in the music and TV industries before becoming the CEO of what is really one of the really disruptive mental health charities out there. They've got some pretty cool ambassadors. They do some pretty amazing campaigns. They've just won a Lion down in Cannes at the Festival of Advertising for a Miss Birthdays campaign. So just really looking forward to getting into all of that. His bike history, what's he on? He's on a Scrambler 900 from Triumph. Very nice too. So yeah, we're going to go for a little ride around the Surrey Hills. Charlie's on his Thruxton today, rather than the X. It's gorgeous orange Thruxton that he's got. It's just been customised a bit. And then we've got, so 2 Triumphs and a Ducati today.
So we have a big problem with suicide, mental health, people in trouble, and bizarrely, there's a lot of young people, and a lot of young people are taking their lives, which is such a shame. And men just can't, I think culturally we are inept as men. We've been conditioned for so many centuries to be the provider, to be the person who has to provide and be the strong one, the person who doesn't never talk about their problems, and we, I think it's much better now. You look at how men approach things 10 years ago and how men approach things now, and it's a massive difference, and it's brilliant, but we do need to do more, and so it'd be really interesting to see what they do with Calm. They have this lovely package called Care, so they can have it's like a little package to sort of how to approach somebody, how to get men to talk to each other, to give us the tools to be able to chat. So anyway, that's what we're going to do today. And he's just here behind me, just there. I can see him there, which is lovely. And yeah, let's see what happens.
Hello.
Yeah, there it is.
And welcome to The Nod.
It's Dave Lee Travis in the room, isn't it?
A mindful motorcycle podcast. This week, we're joined by an amazing guest, actually. The CEO of Calm, the campaign against living miserably, Mr. Simon Gunning. This is a big one because, again, a couple of weeks ago, we had Dr. Alex George,
yeah,
who I'm sure you've done.
He's a friend of ours,
with
yeah.
Alex, and everything we're about here in terms of normalising conversations around mental health and sharing experiences and sharing knowledge and doing it in a way that hopefully is engaging and people can take on board without it being, let's talk about mental health. Boom.
Yeah.
And obviously you're CEO of one of the leading mental health charities in the country.
Yeah.
Disruptive by nature in terms of the way you go about doing stuff, but exactly in the same world as we are, trying to get people talking about this stuff in a really normal way and not making it this taboo subject that we can't talk about openly. So looking forward to getting into some of that. Obviously you are the man with the facts and the figures, and you can deliver some truth bombs to us and give us the background on that. But really interested in your backstory as well and how you ended up in the role you are. And obviously,
and much more importantly, how you got into motorcycles.
Yeah.
I think we should start there.
All right.
Always start there.
Because I think we should start at the motorcycles.
Do you know what we'll start with? We'll start with a little message from our sponsors.
Oh yeah, good idea. Okay.
This episode, as all episodes are in this season, is powered by Devitt Insurance, trusted by UK bikers for over 85 years. Have you used Devitt?
I do. I am insured currently with Devitt.
Perfect. Amazing. The very best. Whether you ride one bike or have a whole garage full like Charlie, Devitt's got you covered. From single bike policies to multi-bike insurance that can save you time and money, they make it easy to help protect what you ride. Tailored insurance quotes, practical prices, and highly rated on Trustpilot. We must give them a rating ourselves. We'll do one from the nod maybe. Head to devittinsurance.com today. Thanks to Devitt. It's great that you're insured with them. We're going to do some stuff with them, an episode soon, hopefully. A bit of flat tracking.
Flat tracking
if all
sounds
goes
good.
well. You've just been away, Charlie.
I have, yes.
Been in Germany.
I've been in Germany. I was there for the BMW Motorrad Days, which is basically their beer festival in Garmisch.
It's brilliant.
Which has been going on for a very long time.
Steins, pretzels, Umperbands, goulash, the whole lot, was it?
But one of the most stunning places I've been to. It's in a valley.
It's a ski resort.
It's a ski resort, but you go up the valley and there's a lake there where you can go swimming, and then they have these it's the tallest mountains in Germany, and there's these big cliffs.
It's right on the border with Austria.
Austria, it's on a crook, so it's like three different countries all meet up together. But it's beautiful, and the beer festival's fantastic, and the Umperbands are just outrageously good.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, they didn't have the same band this time, but a few years ago, I was there, and they had this Umperband on the stage with all the lederhosen and everything, with fantastic music with the big trumpets, boom, bop, bop, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there were all ladies with all the beer things and feeding everybody beer, and slowly the band members, about 10 of them, slowly one would go off, and then a little bit later would come back on dressed as heavy metal. And so the whole thing went from Umperband, without really realizing it, to this big heavy metal banging out all these fantastic favorite songs. Amazing. And it was an amazing, even if anyone's not been there, and it doesn't matter if you don't ride a BMW, it doesn't really matter, but it's a really good show.
Well, it's funny, you sent me a video of the Umperband on Friday, and I got it, and I was like, oh, that's very entertaining. But I was at Oasis, so I was
I'd rather be at the
Umperband. No, I was at the opening night in Cardiff of Oasis, 16 years on. God, it was everything.
Did he just stand in the middle of the stage again and just
sang? He did, and his voice was bang on. Noel's guitar playing was great. They just belted out all the hits. Had Richard Ashcroft and Cast as the warm-ups. Like, it was just an absolute menage of 1990s wonder. We'll dive into your bike history in a minute.
Sorry.
But actually, no, this is a good segue, because before you got into the world of mental health, Simon, you worked in the music industry, is that right?
Yeah, I did. Started in music, and then went to TV, and then went back to music, and then went to advertising.
Right.
And then went to do this.
Yeah. So what was the music job? What was the first job?
The first one was absolutely mad. It was absolutely nepotistic as well. My dad's cousin owned the Marquee Club in Soho and owned Reading Festival. Oh. And at the time, it turns out that Reading Festival was being run by two very nice ladies in their probably late 50s. And they just wanted somebody that was interested in music. I was a guitar player and wanted to be in as many bands as I possibly could be. So I was playing around Camden and all those kind of places. And it was literally, and I've still got it, a handwritten letter saying, Dear Simon, second cousin, third removed or whatever. There may be a job for you at the Reading Festival. Please come to our office in Northolt. And so I went along and I did that for a couple of years, which was...
Well, like a proper written letter that came in the post.
And I kept it as well. It's nice, from Auntie Barbara. I know this is bad, nepotism is probably bad, but
still exists.
They paid me about 40 quid a year, you know.
Well, I lived with my father my whole life to get my acting career.
Yeah.
And I was in most of his movies.
Yeah, I mean,
I got paid a tricycle for being in Deliverance.
Were you in Deliverance?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, he said I was.
You were the one with the banjo, right?
I was the one who had
He was
still got
pig.
a pretty mouth line. But
that was Ned Beatty said that, he said that film made him but broke him as well, because he said for the rest of his life, he nearly once or twice a week minimum, someone would
You sure do got a pretty mouth.
and it would like squeal like a pig, boy, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was horrendous for him. But anyway, my father said, look, if you want that tricycle, can you go and sit on that sofa with that bloke, and you can have a tricycle. That's so dodgy, doesn't it? I mean, can you imagine now?
It was a different time.
It was a different time. But it was John Voight and he and his wife Michelin.
Michelin, she was star.
I was really young. I was only 6 or 7 years old, and his wife, and she was absolutely beautiful, beautiful woman, and I was completely besotted by her.
Would that be Angelina Jolie's mother?
Mother, yeah. I was page boy at the wedding. I held Angelina Jolie in my arms.
See, I was feeling guilty about my nepotism. I can just forget about it.
But nepotism is everywhere, isn't it?
Of course.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
so you got this letter, and you Reading Festival.
Yeah, just left university and went and did that, and then kind of 2 weeks later I'm hanging out with Kurt Cobain and just doing mad things like that. So yeah, it was lovely and brilliant, and I learned a load of stuff and then went into management after that, managing record producers, which is a lovely thing to do in the 90s. Probably still is a nice thing to do now. Had about 20 of them in the end and made some really good records and a load of really shit ones. Like really shit ones, but a couple of good ones. And yeah, loved it. Loved every bit of it, really. And then the record business started to kind of wobble as piracy took over, and I jumped over and
It's the Limewire days, the original.
Exactly, yeah. Limewire. Not many people remember Limewire. Yeah. But it was exactly that.
Enough. Yeah.
But yeah, it was great, and I mean, silly, great fun, standing on the side of stages and going to parties. Really.
I've got in my notes here from your press officer, who's thrown you under a bus, I think, that you're responsible for Hanson.
Oh, not all of it.
Just the worst one.
No, it's not worse. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Everywhere, well, not everywhere I go. Yeah. In so many places, people will put an MMMBOP and point at me and try to laugh. I still think MMMBOP's brilliant.
No, I do. I jest, but it was definitely, I remember the year 97 when I finished school, that was the sound of the summer, wasn't it? And it was just everywhere. I just remember that freedom of leaving school, and Hanson was playing. We were driving up, this is up in Scotland, up in the hills going drinking with our mates, and that was, it was at a time.
Was that in the 1940s?
I'm not as old as you, Charlie, you forget.
You just weathered.
97, I'm 17 years old, good times.
I didn't have much to do with it. I mean, my client made the record, but nonetheless, some of the stories about the Hanson family and quite what Mormons get up to in recording studios is quite funny. So, yeah, it was good.
Amazing. So that's, 90s music producers, drinking, drugs, was just de rigueur.
And Creation Records was the epicenter of that particular universe. In Primrose Hill, which is amazing. I was in Primrose Hill last weekend, and it's like Portobello Road or something now, isn't it? It's rammed, but there was just Creation Records and that pub where you could go in and have a look at the Gallagher brothers sitting at the bar stools. But that was it, and now it's totally different. But it was very, very. There was a lot of good fun had by a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's very different now, the music industry, isn't it? The when back in the day it was all about record sales, wasn't it? And you went on tour to sell the album, whereas now you go on tour to make money.
The whole economic model has kind of flipped in so many ways. So after doing telly for a while and doing things like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I went back to EMI, EMI Music, so all of the labels there, and trying to wrestle with this complete change in the economic model, where it had worked for so long that a major label like EMI or Parlophone would sign 10 acts. One of them would be successful, and that would pay for all 10, and a load of profit and loads of, trolleys with smoked salmon on it and solid gold Rolls Royces for people. And out of those 9 bands that didn't make it, that was all right, because they'd had their advance, they'd come off the dole, they'd all learn how to get good, and then the bass player from band A met the drummer from band M, and they formed a new band, and the manager there got good as well, and then they were the next big hit that powered the next 10. So it really was a kind of a big, quite slow turning machine. And now I don't have to worry about how to make money out of recorded music anymore, but it's all about the TikTok, baby. So I do know quite a few managers who kind of hold their heads of it, kind of, you know, who were around in the 90s, who will hold their heads and just kind of, you know, the game's gone, mate.
But then that's life of change, isn't it?
Of course it is.
Life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to tell what's really interesting as well within that music world is technology has changed things. So you don't need to be in a massive recording studio like you did in the past.
Yeah.
You know, to get that break.
But like you said, I totally agree with you, Charlie. It isn't that the game's gone; it's changed.
It's just changed.
Enjoy it.
So music. And then that was really young, but did motorbikes hit your life then, or
but not in the lovely way that they do now. Kind of Vespers, you know, so whizzing around. I was working in the West End and living in Shepherd's Bush for a long time, and so you know you can queue up for the Central Line, or you can get on a what they called an E something, whatever it was, a 125 Vespa. And just have great fun with it, just holding the throttle open all the time until you had to stop. Yeah. It was great fun.
It is great.
And whizzing around and being utterly irresponsible. Yeah.
Perfect.
It was great.
And so it was partly fascination for bikes, but partly an economic or just an ease thing.
Yeah, but I think the style of it all as well, that's always been a really big part. I love the design of the Vespa. It looks a bit weird now from, when was that, 20 years ago? 25 years ago, but at the time there were kind of shades of blur.
I'll say, were you a mod? Were you in the Burberry Parkers?
No. But there was, like, you know, there were ripples of all that stuff through music, and like Blur really were. You know, they dressed like mods, didn't play like mods. So there's a little bit of maybe mods.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So
I was a mod in school.
Yeah.
Were you?
I was a bit of a mod and a bit of a skinhead and a bit of a Clash fan as well.
Yeah,
that
can all meld together.
Sort of all over the place, really.
That's the fun.
Bad Manners, Madness, The Jam.
Yeah, all of it.
I loved all that.
Yeah, I wasn't born, so
whatever.
One day you too will have wisdom if you stick with it.
I know The Jam.
Yes, one day you
I know
too will have
The
wisdom.
Jam.
The Jam. And Paul Weller, what a fabulous.
I mean, he was the ultimate.
I mean,
mod,
that man
still is.
That man still rocks a haircut, doesn't he? I mean.
I don't know. Awesome. I don't know about that. I think some dignity needs to come to that.
But then, when you know, as you said, you went from music and then you went to TV, to television, and you
was that TV production or
TV production for working for what became Virgin Media TV with like 5 channels, and then I went and did Millionaire for 2 years, which was really great. Mad.
Did you help?
No, I just made money out of it, Charlie. Yeah, I stood near talented people and tried to make money out of it. And
that was the Chris Tarrant days.
Were you there from the beginning? I mean, is what I'm sort of saying.
No, I wasn't there from the beginning. I came shortly after the cough. While that was still kind of resonating, you could still open
a bit
cupboard.
Like Watergate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what Coughgate.
It was huge, wasn't it?
You'd open the stationery cupboard and you'd hear a cough and shut it quickly because it was everywhere. But really brilliant fun and just like silly times really. And then back to the EMI and then to the BBC. I was marketing director at the BBC for a while.
You know, it's a very different thing you're doing now.
Yeah.
To you know, all of the television and music.
Well, it isn't. So it is and it isn't. So I was dicking about and not doing anything worthwhile, working with a number of advertising agencies, helping them do stuff, which was just kind of feeling more and more pointless. And I had a phone call from somebody who I knew, who was the chairman of Calm, who said, we're just parting company with the founding CEO, and do you want to come and have a look at it and just spend a month and see what you think? And I was like, well, I don't know about that. And he said something like, for God's sake, do something worthwhile, will you? So, okay. So I went and did it for a month, 8 years ago. And it was just brilliant. It was very tiny. There were only 8 people there at the time, and another 8 on the helpline that we continue to run now. There's now about 170, 180. Wow. So we've grown and grown and grown and grown. And I say it is similar because we still behave, maybe because I don't know how to do anything else, but we exist deeply in culture. So music and motorbikes and football and comedy are just like kind of central to the way that we communicate and the way, as you know, we don't talk about mental health, which is a very hard door to push on, especially now. It's getting harder. We'll kind of seep things through, like exactly like you're doing. Actually, you know, we think we're talking about motorbikes, but quite often we're talking about friendship and community and that sort of stuff.
Well, it's terrible. I mean, every time we have a guest on, it's always about you know, partly the reason we all ride motorbikes is because of that kind of sort of that mental health thing when you've had a very long, difficult day, which I'm sure you've had many in the area you're in, and then you sort of jump on a motorbike and ride home, you know, that 15, 20 minutes or half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever it is.
The Wandsworth one-way system tends to take the joy out of most things, so that, yeah.
This keeps you focused
and as well
on
as that,
the job in hand, though.
What I don't understand is that part of that system is that some of the bus lane you can go in, and other parts you can't.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't understand. And I've been caught out in the past because of that. And you just think, then it becomes dangerous because you're actually focusing
you're just looking at the sign all the
whether
time.
or not I'm allowed in at this one or not.
Standardise it. Let's get a petition going.
Yeah.
I mean, this opportunity was presented to you, but I guess, you know, was there any personal motivation? What was it just something that you thought, well, that's worthy, I'll get involved? Or?
No, I keep kicking that camera. Sorry, I have as many shit days as anybody. I don't have a big backstory, and you know, we are positioned very clearly as a suicide prevention organisation, and we spread right across what we call the continuum of need. So people who are at a point of suicidal crisis, there's a helpline. And we are highly interventionist, so the people on that helpline are paid and trained and supervised, so they're not volunteers, and that means that we can put even plans together for people. So if somebody, for example, doesn't understand how they access legal aid, let's just say, just as an example, we can help people with those kind of things. So we are different to I think everyone. I think we are unique in that sense. Yeah. But across the other parts of that continuum, you go through, I guess it's hard to quantify or to qualify, but people that have had a bit shit, not very shit, not shit at all. And I think probably most of us fit into a bit shit and quite shit, new category just put in there. Yeah. But I didn't have any draw to suicide prevention. I don't have kind of, you know, the fire in my belly because I lost somebody. But as soon as you start meeting people who have, you have these two immediate reactions. One is, I just don't know how the fuck I would deal with losing somebody, and a child, God forbid, you know, you can't imagine it. In fact, interestingly, I think the human brain stops us imagining it because it's such an awful thing. So kind of an admiration for how people survive when they're bereaved, an admiration for how people survive when they've got close to the point of death. But then quite quickly an admiration for the way people take that energy and they flip it and they kind of slingshot it and turn it into wanting to help other people avoid what they've achieved. So that's right at this really pointy end of the continuum, but those kind of principles work right across the whole thing. So for us this morning, having a lovely whiz around Surrey, we're hopefully you two are feeling fine. I hope you are, I know I am. Yeah. And as we're whizzing around, we've got those lovely little drips of the good stuff, and then we can get off the bikes. And you know, we all do it. We all got off the bikes. We didn't, you know, just start fiddling with something. We all three of us looked at each other and were like, oh, kind of, that was nice. And you do get this little kind of community friendship drop of love stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I think so. But then it's about that, isn't it? Because I was thinking about it when we were riding back together and thinking about how women have over the years have really nailed that thing of communicating and talking and chatting and stuff. And I'm sure there's lots of men out there who will say that, you know, one of the complaints of girlfriends or wives is that, you know, you don't communicate enough. You know, there's often that, and I think for so long now, it's been put on men to be the brave, the tough ones, to not talk about it, but to be the breadwinner. And in the last sort of 6 or 7 years, or 10 years or so, that's changed quite a lot. So we've come a long way, but there still needs to be a lot more done, right?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is looking into those masculine models that we impose on ourselves. Almost like, you know, somebody signed a contract on your behalf and you still have to fulfill the terms. Yeah. And quite often that contract would have been signed by our dads. And, you know, probably our dads, Charlie grew up at the same time, and they would have been living in streets after the Second World War where, you know, were decimated, people didn't come back, or they came back with missing limbs, and to kind of moan about the fact that, I don't know, you didn't go on a nice holiday, that would kind of be seem very trivial in those contexts. And and a part of that stoicism, I think, was passed all the way down. And then prior to that would have been the First World War, and on and on it goes. We've definitely made progress, and certainly with my kids, I tell them I love them every single day. And I do. Honestly, I think the only time other than a firm handshake, I can never remember any kind of. This got heavy pretty quickly. Can we go back to motorbikes in a minute? The only time I remember any sort of physical contact from my dad was like, I was touching his foot when he was dead, when I was leaving the hospital. Right. And I can really feel that in my fingers, like that sensation, I've still got it. And to look at kind of his life as a father versus my life as a father, I know mine is much better. I think mine's brilliant. We just dick about all the time, and we have a very open and honest relationship. But I don't think I am unquestionably massively privileged. I'm a middle class, middle-aged white guy, and I know that for lots and lots of people, they don't have access to that kind of expression. And so I think while stuff has changed, it's certainly a long, long way from changing for most people.
Well, I mean, the stats speak to that, don't they? You know, fundamentally, the suicide rates going up, and there's still 75% of suicides are men, and it's still killing young people. And I was speaking to somebody else in the bike industry, reached out to me last week and said that their son's best friend had just killed themselves and just wanted to have a chat and talk through it. So it's still an everyday occurrence, but there is that opportunity, and I do see it when I speak to other dads my age and younger, that they understand this opportunity to flick the switch on that generational parenting that we've grown up with, and actually, at that circuit breaker, to be more open, to be more present, to communicate emotions more with their children, even though they never had that.
But I think the problem when we talk about mental health, which we have managed to do, and yet that term mental health worries, it troubles me, because it doesn't mean what it should mean now. It's a button, very quick button to press in people's minds, and we are definitely seeing a backslide on the prevalence of the subject. Yeah, we're seeing, whether it's coming from the US, closing inclusivity departments in businesses, where I think woke is all right. I like woke. I mean, it's just woke means kind of having consideration for other people, doesn't it? But it's been weaponized by people that don't. And we're definitely seeing a backslide on it. But at the same time, if we don't take just saying mental health, doing that does fuck all for anybody. Yeah. It's got to be the education, and then what do I do with this new knowledge? So we're going to go to those stats, like you're saying, which is the most pointy of all kind of indicators for how things are really going. Suicide isn't going down. And you're right, the stats are men are 75% of all deaths by suicide. But attempts, if we're going to be really binary for male and female, are about the same. Yeah. It's just that we use men.
Men seem to be better at it then.
Yeah, I mean, it's violent hurt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And we use more violent methodologies. And that's.
But I heard a statistic as well, which isn't spoken about as much, is that as for every person who tries to commit suicide, there are a huge amount of failures. Yeah. In suicide, and you can end up in a much worse situation if you haven't, and especially if you're doing it violently. It can be catastrophic, because you can quite often survive a suicide.
Well, we're the campaign against living miserably, and I think if you're living with suicide in your life, that's about as miserable as you can get.
Yeah, for sure.
But like I said, we want to help. We are here, and we do help people who aren't living miserably, but want to help the people around them. But you're absolutely right, Charlie, with that stat. So there are 25 attempts for every death. If we think about it as a blast radius, so you've got 6,500 deaths in the middle, and then each suicide affects about 150 people directly. Yeah. Then you've got 25 attempts for every death, so that's about 240,000 attempts every year. That's a miserable life for a lot of people. Come out of that, and there's a new number which was literally released about 2 weeks ago around what's called morbidity. And this number is weird, right? So we've got to think about it as very dualistically. So 1 in 4 people in the UK will have suicidal ideation. So that's terrifying and awful. I mean, it's horrible when we think about the people that we care about and we love, or about ourselves. But then if we flip it, it allows us to start to understand that suicidal ideation or just switching it off. Just, I've had enough, just want to turn it off. Whether that's passive or active, it's a part of human life. And once we accept that, our massive brains, like that make us lean forward with these big old frontal lobes, allow us to talk about motorbikes, but they also allow us to be the most dominant species, but they also allow us to question our existence, and nothing else on the planet does.
Does that, yeah.
So there we get existential philosophy, we get poetry, we get the Smiths, and we get the Cure, you know, that we can question whether or not we want to be a part of this, you know, this kind of life.
Yeah.
Once we accept that, then we can accept suicide prevention as being something that we can do, because we just don't want to talk about suicide. It's horrible. I don't want to say it, it's horrible. But suicide prevention, on the other hand, is just positive and brilliant. And when we understand, like, if there's one other person in here, this guy in the green suit, one of us in our life will have suicidal ideation. So, you know, you've got a really close friendship. If Ewan was here, it would be one of the four of us. And you'd want to help that person, wouldn't you? You wouldn't go, oh, it's too embarrassing, I want to run away. Yeah. So in acknowledging that it's a part of human life and human existence, then we can start to confront it and change that. And that point of education comes down to things like, we just made a thing called the Calm Care Kit, which just gives you a tool. You just go to the Calm Care Kit, now you can deal with suicide prevention with somebody that you care about, and it'll give you all of the tools to do it.
And what's in the Calm?
It's a digital tool. It's not a physical thing.
No.
So do you remember Vinnie Jones, Staying Alive? Remember that? So we wanted something similar, CARE. So it's actually the first iteration is about caring for a young person in your life, because, like you mentioned, the stats with young people is especially terrifying. The fastest growing group in history. So it was our age group, Charlie, now, and you know, men. It's now boys and girls, males and females, 16 to 24, fastest growing group in history. And inside that, actually, young girls and women are starting to show even more upsetting points of vulnerability. So the Care Kit was about people who have young people in their lives, was the first outing, but it's completely usable for everybody. C is check in. Just stay with that person. A is if you're worried about them, ask them if they're having suicidal thoughts. When you get it out of the open, you can deal with it. If you allow the
festers,
exactly, it hides in the shadows, and then it's acted upon when they're alone. It's not acted upon when they're with other people. Or generally, so ask them, and then they can say. So there's this thing like we say, "Are you not thinking about doing something stupid? Are you?" What's the answer to that? Yes, I am thinking about being stupid. You're not. You're gonna say, no, I'm not, Mum. You know, whatever. But are you having suicidal thoughts? It just opens it, and then the person can say yes, and they're like, oh, now I can help you. And we all want to help once we get there. So then, how do you help? So R is remain with them, remain close. So don't, if you've got a kid who's in trouble, don't let them sleep on their own. Sleep on the floor, or just generally for somebody who's further across that continuum, remain with them. Just keep with them. Just see how they're doing, take them out. And then E is escalate to expert help, whether that's a doctor or an ambulance or calling the Calm helpline. So that Care Kit just kind of demystifies this thing like, okay, I'm willing to help this person that I'm worried about, but what the fuck do I do if they say yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, isn't it? Because
but I always remember when I went to the doctor, I was going through a tough time, post-cancer for the second time, and I wasn't dealing with it. I was working with JC at Movember, which probably wasn't
nice
helping.
One, mate.
I mean, working for Movember was amazing.
We should say good day to JC.
Yeah, we should say
good day,
not that JC won't be listening to
we
this.
love you,
Jesus
JC.
Christ, we love you, JC. We'll tag him in it. Actually, if he knows you're on, he might tune in. But I was going through a divorce, and I was a mess. I couldn't really see it too much, and I went to the doctor, and they asked me, like, are you having? They did a test, like the questionnaire about depression, anxiety, and they just asked me, are you having suicidal thoughts? And it struck me as such an odd question because I was not cognizant of how bad I was, or maybe how I looked from the outside. I was just in this funk of depression. But it really struck me because I wasn't at all.
Yeah.
But even like you said, just somebody asking that question kind of went bang.
Yeah.
Do I look that bad?
Yeah, but you know what
Do
we
I
think
seem-
until we get the education, we think that asking it causes it.
Yes.
We
No,
do
God, it's quite
culturally.
the opposite.
It's so weird. I mean, it all
No,
comes
it's
from
the opposite, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
because they've already been. But if you're in that kind of panic, then
well, it just gave me that.
Then you've already been thinking about it for quite a long time, and it's always that thing, isn't it? If you have a problem, and you talk about it, and if you talk about it enough, then it solves it, or you get bored of. You get bored of your own problem, and then you think, oh well, fuck it, I'm not going to bother with that anymore. So it does
and
it does work.
That catalyst to acknowledge your own mental health. If you're just in it and you're living it, and you're not taking that moment to step back and consider where you are,
perspective,
and what state you're in.
an external perspective.
But it's the first step, isn't it?
It's the first step, and then how do we feel as a pack? That big old brain allowed us to talk to each other and allowed us to start coming together in packs that really had cohesion, like familial cohesion. Other animals do, of course, but we managed to have this long-term cohesion. And it is absolutely a scientific, physical fact that when we help people, whether we care about them or not, but all the more so if we care about them deeply, we get the drips of the lovely, delicious oxytocin love stuff. So we're designed, this is our programming. We are designed to help each other. And yet culturally, we seem to have developed a design to prevent asking for that help. So we're all missing out. None of us are getting the brain juices that we want because we're dealing with our problems in isolation.
And do you think that's a there's no one answer to this, right? There's no silver bullet of why this is becoming so much more prevalent. There is the historical parenting, through the wars and the outfall of all of that, which was a world war that affected people all over the place. But there's also technology. There's also the way we live now in more isolated. About the people are more mobile, so the family units aren't as cohesive as they used to be. People are out doing their own things in different towns, cities, continents. We're living more in the digital world. All of these things are driving wedges between that social interaction we're talking about.
And the kind of oxytocin that we're getting from swiping right and swiping left and doom scrolling is probably a bit like trying to eat your dinner at the Haribo shop. You're never going to get properly full up. You're not going to get real sustenance. And so there are changes that we need to make. But the answer to me comes in culture. It certainly doesn't come from government. Government's never going to change anything. And the numbers that government puts into suicide prevention and into mental health right across the board are nothing short of fucking pitiful and fucking scandalous. The government is not going to solve this stuff, and the law is not going to solve it. Funding's not going to solve it. It's us. It's culture, and it's how we can change people's attitudes. So just the very fact that you make this podcast and you talk about these subjects to people who may find it difficult to get even in the front door, let alone explore some of the more murkier corners.
Well, and some of it is just to listen and to realize that other people have the same problem, because by having depression and stuff like that, or feeling suicidal thoughts or whatever it is, you can, often makes you feel isolated, and you don't realize that other people are going.
But when you vocalise 1 in 4 have it, you're like, well, fucking everybody's thinking the same shit I am, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So everyone else.
But has
deal
society?
With it. A lot of people deal with it very well.
Yeah.
So
but
why can't you? Anyone listening can take that forward. And
hey guys, I just want to say that Quadlock are joining us this season on the Nod Pod, and as we all know, fantastic brand.
Great bit of kit, and check out all the links in the bios. There's a little discount code for all of you lovely people to go and get some Quadlocks yourself.
Yeah, I've been using them for years.
Take
But do you think the society, it was after the Second World War, things changed. People in the Industrial Revolution meant that countryside farming didn't need as many people. Cities were drawing people in, so communities were being dispersed, and people were being rammed into the cities, and they didn't have that community spirit anymore. Whereas before, you used to live on farms, you would go, the church became a big thing because on a Sunday, it would be a time to get together, for communities to get together to talk and stuff like that. Do you think a little bit of that is lost, or do you think there was always sort of suicidal thoughts there.
I think there always was, but there was definitely a big school of thought that we have actively dismantled communities. There's a guy on TED, can't remember his name, does loads of TED Talks, he's a professional TED talker, can't remember his name. But about that we have, as an economic and a kind of pseudo-political and sociological move across hundreds of years, we have intentionally dismantled community as a society, so that we are a group of individuals who are easy to control. We were just talking, weren't we, about how can we standardise bus lanes in London? Bikers that don't have that kind of big community that would allow us that cohesion. But I think across the board, we've intentionally dismantled community, and digital communication is the greatest tool of communication that we've ever had, and yet it prevents that direct contact, which is so important.
But it's what you look at the farming community as well, that there's huge suicide in farming communities because my father speaks about it, how that community after the Second World War, everyone just pushed into the cities and it's gone, and because industrialization means that financially farmers can't employ the same number of people, so they have to do it all themselves. So they spend huge amounts of times on their own by themselves, struggling. And then after all that effort, you like on Clarkson's farm, he ends up making his £800 profit at the end of the year, and it's demoralizing, isn't it?
Yeah, and farming was the most at-risk occupation until recently. It's now construction. That's flipped over a couple of years ago, I think. But and there's things like access to means as well. If you have shotguns, there's that kind of grim stuff.
I mean, on the lighter side, I guess the interesting thing that
did you say on the lighter side?
On the lighter side.
Come on, let's lighten it up.
No, but
there's motorbikes.
But
really fast.
If you're having difficulty, probably just go out and get your motorcycle test and do it.
Because actually, you do,
or cycle.
We do see
outside.
We do see in the motorcycle community a groundswell of openness and conversation and acknowledgement around the fact that we talk about this all the time. You can pull up in a car park anywhere on the planet on a motorcycle, park next to another motorcyclist and have a conversation. You can't do that in a car.
No.
I think you're weird, right? But bikes create that social connection, that opportunity. And I think anybody that rides a bike knows that and acknowledges that. And a lot of people ride bikes for the isolation, the anonymity, and the fact they can just put a helmet on and not go and not be seen and not heard, and that serves a good purpose. But it can be, potentially dangerous as well, because you've got a tool there that's very good at getting you killed, if you so choose to. But is that mind switch that actually, if you are getting on your bike because you're in a pretty dark place and you're having suicidal thoughts and you think, if I can just run this straight into a wall, that's the end of it. Maybe just stop in a car park.
That doesn't work either.
Mr. Borman is still alive, ladies and gentlemen.
But there's this idea that
anyway,
the reality is, and the message that we can put out is like, if you pull up, if you want to chat to someone, get on your bike and drive to a car park, find a bike, park next to it, have a conversation. And I think a lot of people in the biking community will understand the power of that. The opportunity to listen, and to allow people to connect.
Or maybe don't even realise that they're doing it.
But it's one element of it to me. I think just the fact that when I'm trying to keep up with him going down small lanes, he was very kind, slowed down for me. But I'm not thinking about anything else. You're just thinking about taking the bend and then
crash on this.
Well, I'm thinking, why didn't he slip off there? But you're not thinking about anything else. I'm not thinking about work, although, as we did say, this is work. I'm not thinking about difficult stuff. I'm just thinking about that. So you talk about motorcycle mindfulness. That's what it is.
Dr. Alex George, was on the show saying, it's proven that mindfulness, the neuroplasticity of a brain can be reprogrammed by riding a motorcycle. So riding motorcycles improves your mental health.
But I think
or if you don't have a motorcycle and you're reading this pod, you don't have to ride a motorcycle. You can get out and you can get a mountain bike or a bicycle. And you can get one second hand.
We could, but we're going to go past you really fast.
We're
going to look much cooler.
But any of those hobbies,
I think it's about shared experience as well. So three really important things for Calm are that we a sense of being a part of something bigger than yourself, a sense of self-worth, and then avoiding a sense of entrapment. So entrapment is that point at the end of the continuum where humans start to limit their options of what they can do, and one of those can become suicide. So if you think about being as part of something bigger than yourself, I get like immense joy from my terrifying motorcycle club, of which I am a member. We're called the Tufty Motorcycle Club, so we're very good at crossing the road and all that kind of stuff, as Tufty would have educated us as children to do.
Sure.
And we are the least intimidating motorcycle club in the world, and we go very slowly. And what we do, we have the intercoms on all day, and we talk complete shit from start to finish, including bingo and bollocks like that. Yeah. But it is good with the center ones because you can just a very quick touch and you turn it off.
Yeah. Well, I do with you and I. We spend months at a time chatting all day, and it's extraordinary. And thank gosh we have really good editors who because they can be quite vulgar. Yeah, of course. The language can be pretty awful.
But I find that with the four of us, we'll sit down even and you've finished riding and you've finally got a beer and you've settled for the night. That we might talk for an hour about gloves.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're really talking about gloves. I think you might just be doing some sort of primordial grunting at each other. It might be more like picking lice out of each other's hair than actually having a conversation. You're just in this sort of shared experience and a trust amongst the four of you that there's going to be piss taking, but an almost complete absence of the bants, which I think is just great to get away so that blokes can just stop taking the piss out of each other, just be nice to each other, because nobody really enjoys the bants unless you're. I always say to my kids that it's only a joke if everyone laughs, and that part of male culture we're talking about. Sorry, I've gone into male culture, but is to take the piss. Is to find some sort of pretend advantage or real advantage and punch with it so that somebody else is lower down in the pecking order in that pack. And I don't think I've never come across that in any sort of form with motorbikes that nobody says that my bike's better than your bike. Maybe they do, but certainly
have
not.
you ever listened to a podcast
when
Charlie talks about his Desert X? And
I was trying to backpedal there. Other than having a shit motorbike.
It's not shit, it's better.
It's a bit shit.
No, I think that same culture of motorcyclists is the same thing if you support Chelsea Football Club.
I was just thinking about that actually.
Or if you're whatever community, because it's the community, isn't it?
And I'm also a football obsessive, and I think that to talk about your football team in terms of us and we is just a linguistic indication of a sense of belonging to something, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I've been going to see Arsenal for a very, very long time with the same people, and it's interesting to me that we don't talk about football. We'll have a pint before, and then probably a couple afterwards.
That's because your team's shit, right? No, I'm joking.
We could just look at numbers. We could.
I don't know anything about football. So.
No, let's not go down that road. But we just don't talk about football. There might be if we've lost, it's like, oh, a bit of shit, and then you just get on to talking about.
But it's like that.
But that
number
gives
one
you
barbecue.
the platform, doesn't it?
That's the cohesion.
It gives you the platform to sit there.
And it's that number one barbecue question. If you go to a barbecue, the first thing a bloke will ask you is, "Oh, did you see the football? Or what football's on? Or who do you support?" And I'm like, I don't.
But that's okay, because then you
But then you're like you're that guy on the outside of the conversation.
There's no way
sat talking
heard
to the
that you
girls
like
about
football.
hair and nails because the blokes won't talk to you.
Yeah, that's quite right.
Yeah, I always tend to go towards the chat to the girls, really. But it's much more interesting than standing by a fucking barbecue burning sausages talking about.
I'm just there listening to Test Match Special on my earpiece on my own.
But. No, but I do think it is a big thing. And then I travel a lot around the world, and I go to remote communities in different places. And what I've noticed, around is more in the what we call second and third world countries. The sense of family and the sense of community is much stronger.
Yeah.
And you have generational people living with each other, whereas in our society now we've become ageist,
very much
sexist,
so. Yeah.
ageist and ageist.
But we do have a form of culture that does allow us to explore certain subjects. And when we go into, certainly past, we go into LGBTQ plus and into the trans community, for example, the suicide in the trans community is like, it's awful, it's alarming, it's terrifying. And then into certain religious cultures as well, where that cultural opportunity to seek help is not there.
So I'm kind of interested in, from a calm perspective, I mean, you guys have, disrupted that suicide prevention space.
Yeah.
In your, you've taken a real sort of aggressive approach to not giving a fuck and just saying what needs to be said.
Yeah.
And creating some really hard-hitting, amazing campaigns that, put it very much in people's faces.
Yes.
And you mentioned at the start, and I've been on this for a long time. It's like, we know mental health, we know about now, right? We need to stop raising awareness of mental health. Everybody, it's certainly in this country, gets it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's about that empowerment, creating those opportunities for people to take positive actions into their own lives, to understand it, to put in the processes, to stay well, to look after their friends. Are you pivoting as an organisation from this very hard-hitting suicide is a big fucking thing we need to talk about, to obviously you've got the support, that crisis point intervention that you supply in terms of the lines, but in terms of getting into these communities, changing the cultural narrative around it, what are the sort of things you're excited about and you're looking at from that point of view?
Well, we're very active in lots of different cultural channels. So I end up doing mad stuff like Lewis Capaldi did his comeback for us. So I stood on a stage in Edinburgh in front of 500 pissed up Edinburgh people and went out and had to say, hello, I'm Simon.
At least it wasn't Glasgow.
Yeah, but being Simon from London, you could have gone either way.
That's all right. I was Ben from England when I moved to Scotland when I was 7. I get punched in the face just for my accent. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Well, I'm not surprised.
My face.
Yeah, I'm saying, sure, it's just for the accent. You asked about our campaigns. If we were relentlessly hard hitting, so the ones that we've kind of done really well with in our partnership with ITV and Lab Bible, there's one called Project 84 where we put 84 statues down the South Bank, and we had a week. We were on this morning for a week. So that was kind of the first really big one we did. Then we did one called The Last Photo. We just did one called Miss Birthdays, where we put 7,000 birthday balloons in Westfield in Shepherd's Bush. Yeah. Each one representing a child that didn't reach their birthday.
Yeah, that was not that long ago.
No, that was September. You
went in and it was very beautiful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and then you realise what it actually means.
Yeah.
And then it makes you feel very. It made you feel very. Well, it certainly reminded me of. I had a couple of close friends who didn't make it, and Lou Gordon was one in particular who was a great, really close friend, and he truly believed that life would be better for his friends without him.
Yeah, and that's such a common thing.
And that's a sad thing we get. And
of course, it wasn't.
There
right?
isn't and that was quite a long time ago now.
Yeah.
It was over 35, 40 years ago, and I still he still affects my life.
Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah.
And so I'm less a person. Because he's not here,
and he could have known that.
Yeah,
and that's what we try to do. We try to get. It's such a powerful thing with Miss Birthdays. Everything that we do, we have a clinical board that advises us. Yeah. That's psychiatrists, psychotherapists, academics, and one of the things, quite a surprising insight to me anyway, was so as you walk through those balloons, Charlie, remember you could hear voice notes from parents that had lost kids, which. But a really strong preventative measure for young kids is for them to grasp what it does to their parents and to their family, and then
people left behind.
Yeah, and a long-term campaign that we've had was originally going to be called "Fuck It, Stay," just stay. So for Lou, just stay and just see what happens. We had to drop the "fuck it" because so it's just called "Stay," and it continues to run. The best thing I've ever seen, I think, coming out of any of our campaigns was somebody sent us an Instagram post of a young woman who had seen Stay when she was considering taking her own life, and she saw Stay and she didn't. I think she used Calm, but whatever, whichever way she found to get past that horrible problem, she was still around a year later, and her friends posted on Instagram they'd made her a cake with one candle, and the icing said, "I stayed, I slayed." Just go, come on, and she's just this really happy girl, a year later, and just the principle that the future can be better than the present and the past. So for Lou, for him to know what you thought of him, and to know, and just to grasp that, well, if I stay, who knows what might happen, and the relentless big campaigns about horror don't work. So with Seat cars, we've got a pair of 15-foot ears and put them on the sides of a building on the Marylebone Road and wrote "Grow a Pair" to kind of undermine the whole Piers Morgan grow a pair, that kind of stuff. And comedy and music and football and motorbikes. Yeah. So we can sneak these kinds of things. Stuff. Yeah, and if we've got, it's not a Trojan horse because you're hiding a Trojan horse. These are horses that we get on and we ride around very proudly. Yeah. And just in the last couple of weeks, we've got a number of bands are doing a thing called Lifelines for us, where they're giving us a line from a song which resonates. So one of my favourite bands, being a Six Music dad, is Fontaines DC, and their last single was called "It's Amazing to Be Young," and that leans into all the stuff about suicide prevention with young people. We just had Blossoms and Inhaler, and we've got some amazing bands that are doing some more. And if we can see somebody wearing a Calm X Fontaines DC, and it's got a QR code on it or something, but it looks like a band t-shirt, then we can start bringing people into this universe, which is all about humour and all about, not resilience, wrong word, all about humour, but the perspective that the future can be great. Hope is contagious. So I stayed, I slayed. That young woman, somebody identifying that and go, life did get better. Yeah. And people telling their stories of getting to even a point of absolute despair. So Stephen Graham has talked about his point of absolute suicidal despair, and he came back and look at my life. And if we put very famous, very successful people, then that again maybe doesn't fulfil the need for everybody. But our patron Ramesh Ranganathan talks about how suicide was a very attractive option to him when he was having a really difficult time in his life, and he's so pleased that he didn't. He's out, obviously, the hardest working man in showbiz. But for all of us, just seeing that survival and seeing that it is possible and it's better, it fulfills a huge requirement. And you will be, honestly, you will directly save lives by proving that life can get better, or demonstrating. Yeah.
But then all of us sitting here, and you're whatever age you are and whatever age I am, and
37.
You're 36.
26.
Yeah, but all of us are here not because we've all had an easy life, but we've all had moments, and I'm sure I've absolutely thought, God, I could just fuck it, switch it off now. I've had enough. But that's just waves, isn't it? Bad and good, and that has to happen in life. It can't be smooth the whole way.
We can accept it's just a part of life. That in itself is a part of life. So ups and downs are part of life. For 1 in 4 people, a part of life is to have that passive suicidality, which is like, well, I don't really mind if it switches off. And I think people can then get into a point of terror about their own brains. Like, am I thinking this? Am I going to act on it? And that can lead to more despair. For us to understand that it is a part of life to experience shitty times, and a part of our reaction to that with our overspec brains is to consider whether we want to continue that. What we can do, and it's culture will do it, is demonstrate that life can get better, that people do care about us, and that
you can get through it.
We always love to give people some pointers, some tools, some things they can maybe look to implement into their own lives. So in terms of that community, that friendship group, what are some of the key things people can be doing? The really fucking easy stuff that actually makes a big difference.
It is just the practical checking in. The care kit is on the Calm website, Campaign Against Living Miserably website, and it's so applicable to all of our relationships. And actually, those principles of major life events are very important. So a middle-aged bloke loses his job, this is a very bad moment for that middle-aged bloke because getting another job can be very hard. We should, and we want to, don't we? Just send them a text, how you doing, mate? A big
crisis point. I mean, that's having a baby.
Yeah,
right? That's another huge
Well, fatherhood,
crisis
young
point.
fatherhood is a real difficult place.
Where it might seem like an amazing thing's happened, actually reality can be.
Yeah, totally. But isolation. So I've recently found myself in a new life that I didn't expect to be having at my age. So I'm now single for the first time in 25 years, and my mates just were, my WhatsApp was lighting up, which is just lovely, that you don't even have to go and meet them. Maybe they don't want to travel and meet me for a pint, but just knowing that offer is there. I come to think about it, nobody.
Yeah, they don't like you that much. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen any of them, but that's because they live almost 2 miles away.
That's an interesting point, though. That is quite an interesting point, because there is this feeling that if you send a message, you've kind of done your bit, you're looking out for them, and you get that message back saying, "Oh, thanks, appreciate it, I'm fine."
Yeah.
What do you do with that? Yeah.
But then you've got to do it again.
It's that mate that turns up in your doorstep and says, "Right, we're going for a pint."
Which is a small number of themes here, isn't it? It's human connection. It's understanding that humans are frail. But also understanding that when we help the humans that we care about, we get help too, because it fulfills our genetic purpose, our imperative.
So we're all, both of us, both parties are getting something out of it.
And it's time, isn't it? It's just taking the time.
Well, that's what happens in the city.
But it doesn't. But it's taking
race around in the city.
It's breaking from your obsession with your own life.
We all think we're so busy and everything. Our lives are so important. Which it is. But
busy is a horrible word, isn't it? Everybody's busy.
Good busy, bad busy.
Yeah.
Just busy. Just stop.
Just stop.
Take a moment.
Which we
get
all
on
do.
a bike.
Get on a bike.
Talking of bikes, we still haven't talked about your bike history.
Oh, so it's quite brief. So I did my test in lockdown.
Oh, right.
I'm really very much used to it. So one member of the Tufty motorcycle, we were formerly the Tufty Club, but then we added motorcycle and we all got bikes, you see. So one of them...
so you were a club before?
Oh, we were a club before. We were more of a heavy drinking club and a falling over club.
I love the fact that you've got this club. And are you old mates?
Yeah. Well, it's my brother and people that we've known for just forever and ever and ever. A hairdresser, a tile shop owner, my retired brother, and me. And so the hairdresser Michael, he's more than a hairdresser. So he had a Bonneville, and we just gradually were like, I might as well get one too. So he did the research, and I got a Trident, the new Triumph Trident, and on a trip to Wales, all my fillings came out, and I thought I don't really want this bike anymore. So I too went and got a Scrambler, because it's like an old Shire horse that makes a nice little cough.
You know what? People always make excuses about that, but I think they're absolutely brilliant. But anyone who passes their test and is asking about the first bike, or what bike would I get? What would you choose, Charlie? And I would say the T120, the Scrambler, the Street Twin, the those type of bikes, and Yamaha and Honda and everybody makes them. It's the classic position. You get your feet down really easy. They're powerful, but they're not crazy. So it's a brilliant introduction bike.
And you were saying you park up somewhere. There's something about all three bikes that we're riding today, well, they sort of make people smile at the lights as well. They're not, kind of super aggressive Hayabusas and those kind of things, which is kind of a little bit scary. But they're just, I think that my Scrambler is really cool. And I think that because I obsess about going to Urban Rider and places like that and have to get,
Bike shed.
And the bike shed, definitely.
Bring that in.
Bike shed. And buy loads of cool gear. I do, unfortunately, then have to take my helmet off, and everybody can see that I'm not in any way cool. But I do ride a bike, which is cool.
You're looking pretty good from my rearview mirror.
Thanks, mate.
If I had one.
Yeah, but I had the helmet on at that point. Yeah, if you had one, you have to actually turn around.
But thank you for I suppose we just got to say thank you very much for your time.
It's such fun.
Because it's a nice way to spend a Monday.
Totally.
On a bike, isn't it?
Yeah.
A couple of messages.
One
big announcement.
There,
one big announcement.
Oh yeah, what's
this
that?
Is fucking unbelievable.
What?
We've done a whole episode and you haven't mentioned the Dakar Rally.
Oh. How disappointing.
It's a fucking highlight of season 3 already. We're going to put that in the highlight reel. Congratulations. Sorry if you were waiting to hear another Dakar story from Charlie, but it's not been in there. Well done. Well done.
I've got my Dakar chest here.
I'm sure we've got loads of stuff. And also worth noting, we're in Charlie's new studio, which is very exciting.
Not
quite finished, but it's getting there, and it's going to be a nice new home for us, hopefully. Once you've finished, you can't see, but there's some nice things ready to be brought out.
Yeah.
Next week, I'm going to be at Goodwood at the Festival of Speed with a guest host joining us.
We're bringing back.
We found him. We found Anthony Partridge.
Anthony Partridge. He was under a leaf,
under
wasn't
a
he?
rock
Because he's quite small.
So our co-host from the other 2 series, who hasn't been on this series at all because he's been away doing so, I think he's been filming some Netflix thing in Spain last week. Anyway, he's back. We're going to be at Goodwood. We're going to be doing a bit of special Goodwood special with some cool people. I'm going to be riding up the hill on Sunday. Thanks BMW for that. I can't wait. You're off
Don't fuck it up.
You're off to spend a lot of money on a steak dinner for your daughter's graduation.
My daughter's takes graduation, and then I'm off to Austria.
And you're doing
Yep.
nice. And you're doing a little bit of fun thing this week with Quadlock.
Yes.
Our other great
I'm
friends.
doing with great friends of Quadlock. Yep.
Simon's a Quadlock fan already, and now he's now got his water bottle. As ever, do check out
Am
the
I allowed
links.
to talk about it, Harvey?
Oh yeah, he's been on the show.
He's been on the show. We're going to do a little thing with Harvey, Quadlock, and we're going to do a little ride down to Goodwood, actually.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
What, 2 up?
No.
Oh gosh, you're not on the back.
So. No. I don't go on the back.
I'd pay to see that. That would be fun. You're handing out Haribos. On the way to Goodwood. Well, enjoy that.
Yep, I will. Okay.
We'll see you next week for that episode. Thanks to Quadlock, as ever, for all the support, and to our friends at Devitt Insurance. Do go and check them out. Links are all in the bios. Do like, subscribe, leave us a comment. If you can give us a rating on the old Apple and Spotify, that's always really nice, and leave a message. Helps with the algorithms in this digital world. Come and see us in Goodwood. We'll be on the BMW stand, and we'll be back next week with that special with some cool guests.
Yeah.
We'll see you then. Until then, thank you, Simon. Stay safe, be kind, and check in with a mate.